Hey, this is Michael Lindsay from Vital MX, and this is our 2022 450 roundtable for our shootout. We're going to break these videos up. If you're watching this intro, this might be for the Honda, the Cowie, the Suzuki, the Yamaha, etc. But we have one on each bike because, man, they would be too long to sit down and play through at once. So whatever bike one you're about to watch, check it out. And if you want, check out the others as well to learn everything from this year's shootout. Moving to our fourth place bike, the Honda CRF450R. So I think you see, if you look at the scores on our video or the article, I said you got your Yamaha and Gas, just amazing scores. KTM not too far behind him, and then it's a big jump to our next two. And the Honda and the Cowie, tight contention. Guys like things about each one, but I think they're a bike, when you look at everybody's score sheet, each bike has super positives, and then it's got a couple negatives, maybe not as, overall setup out of the box, I guess. And that's how I felt about the Hondas. This is really weird for me, is like Honda, I feel like, is, of course, the most aggressive OEM every time they do a new generation bike. They don't just be like, oh, we're going to, update a couple little things. It's like, nope, let's go all in. New more, new this, new that. And I genuinely like this generation bike better than the last gen bike, but I still feel like last year the bike came in and it was sloppy, might be a term I'd use, just undeveloped. Like, you can definitely tell they needed to finish some things on it. And then this go around, they still tweaked on it, but it still needs more. It still needs more refinement. For me, I felt like the motor, mid to top character is really good. It's really stout, puts out big numbers. They've tried to mellow it out, make it more KTM husky-ish, more linear, I think low into that mid-transfer. I just think their mapping isn't as clean as some of the other brands. It's a little dirty feeling off the bottom at times. All the maps do different stuff. I say the mellow map was actually my favorite, but I think that, I don't know, none of the three were like perfect for me. I didn't prefer any over there. The aggressive had nice sharp response, but it sounded really raspy and it blew through the power quick. First map was good if I was revving the bike. First map was okay if I was like shifting it, I guess, higher gear, but then the second map, because it pulled through so good, the mellow map, is I found myself revving it, that bike, because it wouldn't pull like third gear out of corner. So I was just kind of all over the place with that bike, shifting, throttle position, what power the motor was making. I felt like I was guessing with that bike more around the track than, say, like the Yamaha that pretty much had power everywhere at all times, or even the KTM or that had power where I wanted it. I do love the chassis and just like handling characteristic front to rear, just how sharp turn-in response is, how good it is mid-rut, how planted I feel like it was. But I'll loop back to myself in a minute, let you guys talk. But the reason it really came down for me is it was hard for me to get to that point and set up.
Out of the box, it doesn't shine, I'll admit, especially at Glen Helen, especially at a rough sand track. If we got to Paris on a smooth day, Paul on a smooth morning. But a vet rider, that's when I ride. I go early in the morning, and I'm out by noon before it gets rough. Basically, the second, third, and fourth, I did put the Honda fourth. It was very tough. The Yamaha was the easy pick, and then second, third, and fourth, on my numbers and scores, they were within 1 point of each other and even tied. So it came down to, okay, if I couldn't do anything to the bike, I couldn't buy anything, I couldn't change anything, and that's why I had to put it fourth, because the KTM beat it out because it had air forks, and it was one more adjustable point the Honda didn't have to help with that setup. And stock, the Honda fork springs are too light for me, so it would have been chasing myself and never, without putting money into it, happy. But that being said, my own personal bike I love. It's the funnest for me to ride. It corners great. It's nimble. I feel like it's the best bike if you're going off at a rutted takeoff on a jump to correct in the air over any other bike, even the Yamaha. Yeah, it's just such a nimble, light-feeling bike, and definitely over the last 3-year version of it. So this chassis style is definitely better. Track toughness is where the Honda lost for me, because as my personal bike, I changed a lot track to track, but I don't mind that. I like to tinker on it. I like to work on it. And once I get it where I like it, I love it. So,
yeah, for me, the Honda, I put it third. And kind of my rankings is I'm thinking like, okay, out of all the bikes, like which bike do you want to keep riding? And if that one's not available, then I go to the next one. And that one's not available, then I go to the next one. So it's like the Honda was third for me, even though I put, Honda third, KTM fourth, but they're really close for me. I could switch them depending on where we went. But I really like the Honda. the first thing I noticed was the fork was a little soft. I talked to the Honda techs, and I said it wasn't almost even the whole stroke of the fork. It was just the initial part that I was like, initially it feels really hollow or really soft, and then it hits kind of a ledge there, and I was like, I just want more initial hold up. So they went a little stiffer on the compression and messed with the rebound a little bit, and that helped at Glen Helen. Power wise, I would say it was kind of middle of the road for me. I liked the throttle response, and I liked how snappy it was, but it wasn't like ripping my arms out. And if anything, it's similar to the Yamaha, but I like the Yamaha like way better.
I forgot to mention the traction control on the Honda. Did you use it or play with it?
No, I didn't.
Did you play with it at all?
I played with the torque control bit because I was playing around with on the 21 version that was mapped really poorly. I couldn't ride it in map 1 or 2, so I'd ride map 3, and I'd use a lot of torque control, like map version 1 or 2 of torque control, to try to slow down that RPM build so it wouldn't blow through it. Glen Helen, I was running map 3 a lot because I wanted to try to carry third through a lot of the corners. Map 3 had enough pickup to keep me in third, but then, like I said, once we got on the straightaway, if I grab a handful, the Honda just felt like it blew through the RPM in map 3, so then I would run torque control in a fairly aggressive state, because then if it sensed a quick RPM pickup, it would start to reduce the bike. So it would help make the power feel longer in a way. I do, like I said, I love that the Honda, the KTM and Husky have traction control, but it's one setting. The Honda's got 3 of those. It's got 3 maps. There's a lot of variants you can do with the power.
Right. And the best thing is it disengages after half throttle, where the Husky and the KTM, which scares me because it's on. So if you do get out of shape on a jump and try to correct and you wrap the throttle, it falls on its face. Where the Honda, it disengages.
It's only active from basically 0 or 1% as it turns on to 50% throttle position. It's engaged. As soon as you go past 50% throttle engagement, the system is disengaged.
And also when you clutch it, it disengages it. So it's only for roll on. Yes. So that's where if you can run it and not be worried it's going to get you in trouble anywhere.
Yeah, I was really excited to ride the bike. I haven't been on a Honda since 2014, so it'd been a while seeing all the changes that have been made, and obviously a lot of their top tier guys have been killing it on it. So I was really excited to ride the bike. First day I got on it at Glen Helen, set the sag at 105. My first main concern was, is it going to have that stink bug feel? Am I going to feel high in the rear, low in the front, kind of how my 14 Honda did? And no, it didn't feel as bad, but I still kind of felt that feeling. I felt like I always had the front weighted, no matter whether I was hanging off the rear, going down a straightaway. It just always felt a little rear end high. One thing that I did like, though, is you didn't have to make big adjustments, whether it be forks or shock. You could feel a lot of the adjustment. Like I wanted to go a half a turn out on high speed, and he's like, man, that's a lot. Let's just go a quarter. And when I went out there, I was like, wow, I could really feel that quarter of turn on the high speed. So, but one of the things that you said was the second day at the sand track, they went flush with the forks, which helped with, I don't think you could ever not make that bike corner. That bike is going to corner. Whether you go off the flat, rut, berm, you can carve that thing on a dime. And I love cornering. I mean, that's like one thing as a rider, like you know when you hit a corner good. But one of the things that I didn't like about it is under high speed, kind of getting leaned over, whether it be left or right, the stability. Like I just always felt like something with the fork at some point, where I was leaning into the corner, I just got that twitch, and it made me feel like, oh, it's going to spit me off. And it was like it would go through the top part of the stroke, and I kind of felt like I was riding in that harsh mid part of the stroke. So I always found I was stiffening the compression and slowing rebound to try to stop that just go, and then it correct itself. And I never really found I got to a happy point with it, just because of the characteristic of the fork. But the Honda power-wise was really, really good. Did not mind it at all. Felt at the tighter sand track, had a lot of fun on the bike. Just could really just just in little tight sections. Cornering obviously is phenomenal. One of the things that I would have liked to try, I would have liked to, instead of opening up the high speed, I should have said, hey, let's go to 107 on 106, 107 on sag instead of just staying at 105, because I think I could have stood that little bit more of that high speed compression if I'd have switched it with the sag numbers. So, but overall, great bike.
So I think we'll close out on the Honda here, but it's weird. I'll say compared to the old Honda, I think the track toughness is better because there's more comfort in the chassis. But at the same time, it still holds one character that the last Honda had. It is the most sensitive motorcycle I've ever ridden for. Okay, you do 3 millimeter of sag on a Yamaha or do the fork a couple, like 5 mil on the KTM. Yes, it's noticeable. Honda, 1 mil, holy crap. 1 mil fork, holy crap. 1 mil sag. It's one of the most sensitive bikes. Same thing, just every position change, everything that has to do with just how much the weight balance changes. I mean, it's good and bad. It's good if you tinker and you pay attention, but I also think for the general consumer, you have to be really aware when you get this bike, like, hey, check your sag often. Your weight fluctuates away a little bit during the week, couple things. Like, it will. And it's a bike that, like I said, I think it has a better overall character than the last chassis, and once you dial it in, it is a little better track to track, but I still think you have to stay on top of it a little bit and also be aware that, yeah, it's pretty sensitive, but that's part of what gives it such sharp response to everything it does. And that's just what I'll close out on the Honda with. I think that's just something to be aware. It's a weird one to say track toughness is better, but it's also one of the most sensitive setup bikes I've ever ridden.
I actually had one more question. Is the physical chassis a little bit shorter? Have they shortened the chassis on that motorcycle?
That's a good question.
Last one, I think it's ergonomically from the 17 to 20 bike, it's not really any different. I think they changed something on the head angle. I think it might be like, minor. I mean, we're talking like half a degree, something different. There is a ever so minor difference, but I think it's a big thing. As Honda, you know, ergonomically, the rest of the rider triangle that everybody always likes in the Hondas is the same. They've kept, you know, they nail that all the time, but it is ever so slightly different.
The reason why I asked that, I just would have, like I said, because you can make that bike corner no matter what. I would have liked to seen the front be a little bit more raked out for that high speed stability.
We ran on our guys' team bikes here. We ran 24s outdoor. I know a lot of guys have run 23.5s and 24s, and same thing. It's got so much weight on the front already. The guys came in, they're like, look, it didn't lose any of that turn in, but it's just get some of that weight off. It doesn't make it feel like it's driving the front. I almost think it doesn't really change. It sounds weird. I don't think changing that offset changes the turn character that much of the bike, but it actually changes almost how like the fork feels better. It just moves so much better through the strip.
I ran those on mine, and I noticed a big difference with
stock race.
22?
22.
Okay, so yeah, that's it would have to be a little bit farther out would have just helped just a little bit on stability for me.
No, thank you guys all for tuning in and listening to this. Like I said, that's why we do all this. There's a lot of information on each bike here. You can break it down, listen to the bike you're interested in, maybe even ones that you've been on the fence about, go through everything we said. Like I said, we put these out in multiple formats. If you're here, you've probably watched the short and sweet version we already did that was a lot quicker than this. And then if you want to learn more, me and Sean have talked about a lot about horsepower, weights, a lot of those figures. We have an article up on the website you can check out. Should be a link in the bio below. If you're the old school guy and you just want to read all this and not listen to us talk forever on YouTube, that route also works as well. But we'll be kicking off 250 Shootout here in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for more. And thanks for listening.